History is often shaped not by grand visions, but by a single catastrophic act of corporate betrayal behind closed doors. In the late 1980s, the undisputed king of video games was Nintendo, commanding nearly the entire global market with an iron grip. Meanwhile, Sony was merely an electronics giant, searching for a breakthrough in the explosive, untapped potential of compact disc technology. Engineers from both empires met in strict secrecy to forge a technological marriage that would completely redefine modern entertainment forever. Sony engineered a revolutionary hardware add-on called the Super Disc, combining Nintendo cartridges with high-capacity optical audio and data. But the real masterstroke wasn't the hardware itself. It was the ruthlessly one-sided contract Nintendo forced Sony to sign. Under the terrifying terms, Nintendo retained absolute total control over every single game title released on the upcoming Sony hybrid console. Worse still, Nintendo would collect nearly all the licensing royalties, leaving Sony to absorb the manufacturing risk with zero profit upside. Sony executives swallowed their corporate pride and accepted the humiliation, believing that breaking into the gaming market was worth the initial pain. Everything was prepared for a triumphant global unveiling at the Consumer Electronics Show in Chicago in the summer of 1991. Sony executives stood proudly on stage, announcing their grand partnership with Nintendo to the awestruck gaze of the entire technology world. But precisely 24 hours later, Nintendo executives executed a maneuver so shockingly ruthless that it paralyzed the global business community. At a completely competing convention across town, Nintendo publicly announced they were utterly dumping Sony in favor of Dutch rival Philips. Nintendo had secretly realized their contract with Sony gave the electronics giant full control over CD format software profits, and they panicked. Instead of negotiating in good faith, Nintendo chose public assassination, humiliating Sony in front of the entire international press corps. Back in Tokyo, Sony's leadership experienced a cold, calculated fury that would forever change the trajectory of modern entertainment technology. Ken Kutaragi, the humiliated Sony engineer behind the Super Disc, walked straight into CEO Norio Oga's office with a dangerous proposition. Instead of walking away, Kutaragi urged Sony to build their own standalone gaming console and utterly destroy Nintendo on their home turf. It was a monumental financial gamble that could bankrupt Sony's gaming division before it even sold its very first unit. Sony leveraged its unmatched audiovisual expertise and deep manufacturing power to birth a machine codenamed the PlayStation. While Nintendo stubbornly clung to expensive, limited cartridges for their Nintendo 64, Sony embraced cheap, high-capacity compact discs. This opened the floodgates for cinematic storytelling, sprawling 3D worlds, and blockbuster third-party game developers fleeing Nintendo's strict rules. When Squaresoft abandoned Nintendo to launch Final Fantasy VII exclusively on PlayStation, the war was already effectively over. The original PlayStation went on to sell over 100 million units, completely shattering Nintendo's absolute dominance of the industry. Nintendo's arrogance didn't just create a competitor, they birthed an absolute corporate monster that would dominate the living room for decades. To this day, Nintendo remains scarred by that strategic blunder, perpetually avoiding direct hardware wars to carve out safer niche gimmicks. In the ruthless world of business, treating your partners like disposable pawns is never a safe strategy. It is an invitation to your own execution. When you back a technological giant into a corner with public humiliation, do not expect them to surrender. Expect them to build a weapon. Every dollar you spend on modern entertainment ecosystems is a direct echo of this legendary corporate bloodbath from the early 90s. Understand the hidden maneuvers behind billionaire empires. Protect your investments from arrogant monopolies and subscribe to uncover more corporate secrets.